What do you think of when you hear the name Colonel Gaddafi? Dictator? Terrorist? Well, a national citizen of Libya may disagree, but we want you to know the truth. Muammar Gaddafi did some truly amazing things for his country and tried to unite and empower the whole of Africa. Welcome to our channel, The Rise Network. Please subscribe for more videos. Muammar Gaddafi was born June 7, 1942. Commonly known as Colonel Gaddafi, was a Libyan revolutionary, politician. Having taken power, Gaddafi converted Libya into a republic governed by his Revolutionary Command Council. Gaddafi became the de facto leader of Libya on September 1, 1969 after leading a group of young Libyan military officers against King Idris I in a bloodless coup d'état. Under Gaddafi, education and healthcare were free for all. Gaddafi's government had legislation providing for a grant to newlyweds to buy their first apartment so as to help start a family. The Gaddafi regime embarked on one of modern man's edifices of development, the Great Man-Made River Project, to make water available to the whole country. As is known, Libya is in a desert region, and Gaddafi's plan to ascertain every citizen of access was the Great Man-Made River Project. Libya was a well-endowed state. To put this into perspective, the self-acclaimed champion of democracy and capitalism, the USA, has a debt of over $18 trillion. Libya had none. Enough said. The price of petrol was $0.14 per liter. In 2011, Stavely Head, a UK-based provider of insurance products, compiled a list of countries with the lowest petrol prices in the world. China.org.cn reported the listing, which put Libya at third position with its low $0.14. Having a home was considered a human right. Gender equality actually a reality. The Human Development Index was better than two-thirds of the countries reported on. People had enough food. Privatization of all Libyan oil to every citizen. A grandson of Nelson Mandela is named Gaddafi, a sign of how popular the late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi once was in South Africa and many other African countries. Gaddafi inspired South Africans to fight for their liberation, funding and arming the anti-apartheid movement as it fought white minority rule. After Mr. Mandela became South Africa's first black president in 1994, he rejected pressure from Western leaders, including then US President Bill Clinton, to sever ties with Gaddafi, who bankrolled his election campaign. "Those who feel irritated by our friendship with President Gaddafi can go jump in the pool," he said. Instead, Mr. Mandela played a key role in ending Gaddafi's pariah status in the West by brokering a deal with the UK over the 1988 Lockerbie bombing. It led to Gaddafi handing over Abdelbasit Ali Mohamed al-Megrahi for trial in Scotland. He was convicted in 2001, before being released 8 years later on compassionate grounds, a decision Mr. Mandela welcomed. No one can deny that the friendship and trust between South Africa and Libya played a significant part in arriving at this solution. It vindicates our view that talking to one another and searching for peaceful solutions remain the surest way to resolve differences and advance peace and progress in the world, he said in 1999, as he approached the end of his presidency. It was pure expediency to call on democratic South Africa to turn its back on Libya and Gaddafi, who had assisted us in obtaining democracy. Gaddafi's position in Africa was paradoxical. Just as he backed pro-democracy causes, he also fueled rebellions in countries such as Liberia and Sierra Leone and supported Uganda's infamous dictator Idi Amin. African leaders tended to overlook this. Muammar Gaddafi, whatever his faults, is a true nationalist. "I prefer nationalists to puppets of foreign interests," Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni said in February. Therefore, the independent-minded Gaddafi had some positive contribution to Libya, I believe, as well as Africa and the Third World. We should also remember, as part of that independent-mindedness, he expelled British and American military bases from Libya, after he took power, Mr. Museveni said. Gaddafi played a prominent role in the formation of the African Union, AU, a body in which he wielded enormous influence because he was one of its major financiers. At an AU summit in 2008, he got many African traditional leaders to declare him the continent's King of Kings. A spokesman for one of those traditional leaders, Uganda's Toro Kingdom, says Gaddafi was a visionary and would be missed. "We saw the human side of him, not Gaddafi the colonel or the proverbial terrorist as the Americans and Europeans described him," Philip Wanyee said. In spite of what many see as his weaknesses, he has done quite a lot for Africa, contributing to the building of infrastructure. Gaddafi pushed for a United States of Africa to rival the US and the European Union, EU. We want an African military to defend Africa. We want a single currency. We want one African passport, he said. Africa's other leaders paid lip service to achieving this vision, but none seemed very serious about putting it into practice. I am satisfied that Africa is going along its historic and right road, Gaddafi told a small group of reporters in Kampala at the end of the summit. One day it will become similar to the United States of America. We are approaching the formation of the African Authority, and each time we solve African problems and also move in the direction of peace and unity. We deal with problems step by step. We are continuing to do that, Gaddafi said. Gaddafi on Africa. 2007, whenever I ask about Pepsi or Coca-Cola, people immediately say it is an American or European drink. This is not true. The cola is African. They have taken the cheap raw material from us. They produced it, they made it into a drink, and they sell it to us for a high price. Why are Pepsi Cola and Coca-Cola expensive? Because they have taken our cola, produced it, and sold it back to us. We should produce it ourselves and sell it to them. 2008, we want an African military to defend Africa. We want a single African currency. We want one African passport to travel within Africa, after being declared King of Kings by African traditional rulers in Libya. 2010, we don't know what will happen, what will be the reaction of the white and Christian Europeans faced with this influx of starving and ignorant Africans, after discussing halting the flow of African migrants to Italy. Muammar Gaddafi was certainly not killed for humanitarian reasons. Gaddafi wanted to empower Africa. He had a plan to create a new African Union, based on a new African economic system. He had a plan to introduce the gold dinar as backing for African currencies, so they could become free from the dollar-dominated Western monetary system, that kept and keeps usurping Africa's vast natural resources, especially oil and minerals. As a first step, he offered this lucrative and very beneficial alternative to other Muslim African states, but leaving it open for any other African countries to join. At the time of Gaddafi murdering by Hillary Clinton, then Obama's Secretary of State, and the French President Sarkozy, driven by NATO forces, on October 20, 2011, Libya's gold reserves were estimated at close to 150 tons, and about the same amount of silver. The estimated value at that time was $7 billion.